Hey, 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 welcome back, guys. Welcome back to After Hours with Jimmy Thistle. I am back. You guys haven't noticed I've been away, but I've been away in sunny Morocco, Marrakesh, for a couple of weeks. I know I told you that I was going away before I went away, but it was an amazing holiday. We had such a good time. Massive kind of learning curve for me because we went away with 68 people. So, it was massively taking me out of my comfort zone. I think like 26 kids, teenagers, and the rest adults. So, we had to keep an eye on everyone and make sure kids weren't scattering and all of that. But just to be with that many people and that many kind of different personalities, yeah, completely took me out of my comfort zone, and it was a bit scary to begin with. But I think I did quite well. I was doing a lot of photography for the kind of different dance events that we did, and thoroughly enjoyed it. Then Jen and the kids and Jen's sister and we went off, and we had like kind of three nights, 4 days in a villa. Did a bit of quad biking, all the rest of it. So yeah, I fell in love with Morocco, with Marrakesh. It's such a, it's a type of place that I've never been to before. Completely different culture. Obviously it's Islamic country, and I just loved it. I embraced kind of the respectability that we had for, the clothing and just, your kind of attitude while you're there. So, I feel like I kind of did myself proud with that. It's interesting. We did go through, a couple of, I wouldn't call them rougher areas, but maybe poorer areas. A couple of nights we were walking in big groups. And you know what? It was weird. Didn't feel the same level of threat that you might have felt in a UK city, walking kind of late at night in these areas. And a friend of mine out there said, and he I don't think he drinks really that much anymore, but he was saying, well, there's no alcohol here, is there? There's alcohol for Westerners. If you go into restaurants and bars and things like that, you can have alcohol. Obviously, I didn't. But the country in itself is like it's a non-alcoholic country. They don't drink alcohol. So there's not that same level of, and in my mind, my opinion, there's not that same level of frustration, anger, jealousy, envy, whatever it is that causes people to, attack people in violent ways, because they maybe have what this person wants, and so they want to take it from them. There isn't that same anger and kind of a tendency to attack people. I'm not saying that it's a safe country and it's completely, non-violent. Of course there is crime and whatnot over there, but we didn't see it, and I didn't feel the same level of threat that I would in a UK city. And it was quite remarkable. But that's my thoughts on it. And also, it's just weird that, yeah, there is alcohol available there, and if you're of that way inclined, then you can get it. But I just think if you're going to a country that doesn't, like, basically they've got alcohol available, it goes against their religion, goes against their beliefs and their cultural norms, but they have it available to include Westerners coming in. And I think if you're going into a country like that, just don't drink. Just don't drink for however long you're there. Surely you can get on with life and enjoy food and culture of another country without actually having to have a drink. Knock yourself out when you get back home. But I just think it's sad that they have to have it available, because otherwise probably they wouldn't have the same level of tourism, which is quite sad, really, if that's the state of play there. But yeah, other than that, it was an amazing trip. I definitely would love to go back. Whether we get I'd get the chance to go to that place again. But yeah, I highly recommend Morocco, Marrakesh. Very interesting, very conservative type country. I mean, it really is, because you have to dress, conservatively, cover up, women do. And obviously the men as well. No one's walking around in vest tops and really short shorts. It's it's a hot country, so I did wear shorts, but you have to try and make sure that they're like to the knee or over the knee, and that's not a great hardship. You're in their country, respect what they do. So, yeah. Today on After Hours we have Beth. Now, Beth is just an amazing lady. She's doing so much for women with issues with alcohol. But Beth really kind of usual family kind of back in the day. The mum would cook the kind of Sunday roast, and her dad would go down for the working men's club, just the kind of the way it was back then, and that kind of whole cultural attitude towards booze. It was just the norm, and the dad would come back maybe kind of a little bit half cut or whatnot, but just kind of really just accepted that that's the man's role, that's the women's role. So she grew up with that. She really did hate the smell of alcohol when she was younger, so she didn't really ever think that she'd become a drinker. But she started drinking at the age of 15, had a really horrible experience. I think it was a New Year's Eve night, just throwing up everywhere, and just a horrible night. And it did take her a while before she got into it, a couple of years maybe, but it was, this was kind of, it's a rites of passage for kind of people growing up in the 80s and 90s in the UK. She went to university from the north and moved down to Southampton. And I guess loneliness and depression kind of really took hold at certain points after university, because she drank a lot at university, and then she was out in the world doing it, living on her own, and kind of, just thought, what am I doing? I'm going to drink. So Beth's story is really interesting. She tried AA at one point when she was younger. She bought a book called Caroline Knapp that she talks about later on. Now, this Caroline Knapp book, I think it's called Drinking a Love Story. And it has like a little questionnaire at the beginning to see how bad your drinking is. And she bought this book at 23, and she's filled out, she's still got the book, she showed me. She filled out all the details and what was kind of going on, and so I think she knew from an early age that she did have a problem. So you'll find more out more in the chat. So yeah, I won't keep talking, but listen for the similarities, because I think that Beth maybe didn't do that the first time she went to AA. She was just felt full of anxiety and didn't go back until much later. But listen for the similarities in Beth's story. And here comes Beth. Cheers, guys. See you at the end. Bye bye. Beth, welcome to After Hours. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, really good, really good. Just kind of, we're going to Morocco on Monday. We've got a bit of a kind of dance, music, Manx. Well, it's a cultural thing all across the globe. Are all going to Marrakesh. They go every year. So my wife and the kids are involved in the Manx dancing culture over here, so we're all going. I'm not doing any dancing or singing or musical playing or anything like that. I'm there as a chaperone, but it's going to be. I've never been to Africa, so Morocco's going to be amazing. So yeah,
Oh,
so it's kind of.
wonderful. I'd love to go there. I've always wanted, ever since in the 90s, I read a book called Hideous Kinky, and it
Oh
was
yeah, well I've
based
seen the
there.
film. Yeah,
Yeah, and it just sounds amazing. You'll have a lovely time. Do you know, at
yeah.
first when you said Manx, I was thinking of Manchester.
Well, that's yeah.
With
So it's
Manx dancing.
Manx dancing, that would be like all the baggy gear and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, from the 90s. Yeah. So it's all a bit hands on deck at the moment. We're doing some practice sessions. So I'm kind of organising the really young ones to kind of come off the stage and go on. So we had one last night. We've got one again tomorrow, and then we're off to Liverpool on Monday, and then fly out to Marrakesh on Wednesday. So yeah, it's all a bit crazy.
Oh, it'd be
But
lovely.
yeah, I'm just looking forward to a bit of kind of winter, autumnal sun, because we had such a good summer here that like this is like, oh my gosh, yeah. So
No, I
yeah,
hear you.
yeah. So your accent's lovely. So tell the listeners whereabouts you're from and where you reside now. Then.
So originally, I'm from Durham in the
Mhm.
northeast, but after I left university, My friend told me that Southampton was 5 minutes away from London, and being from the northeast, I believed her.
Yeah.
So the train from London to Southampton was interesting. It took
Yeah.
quite a lot longer. So, but I've been here ever since. So yeah, I'm from Southampton. We live on the side of the New Forest, so it's actually lovely here.
Yeah. Well, you've kept your accent. I mean, I guess I have as well. But I love that. Is Durham still in? I'll get this wrong, but Northumberland, is that still?
No,
No,
Durham is County Durham.
It's County Durham, of course it is. Yeah.
Land of
But
the
that
Prince
whole
Bishops.
what's that? Sorry.
Land of the Prince Bishops. They're very proud of that. None of us know what it means, but we all say it.
They all say it, yeah. No, as I say, that whole part is. I used to live over in Hull, so we would take kind of camping trips up to kind of County Durham and Northumbria and places like that. So yeah, beautiful. Yeah. So Beth, tell us a little bit about your childhood, growing up, and when you had your first drink, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah, so I was brought up in just a typical northeastern family. My family was extremely close. And it's funny because I was just talking to my husband about this, and it was kind of on a Sunday that, your mum made the Sunday dinner while your dad went out to the working men's club, and then he came back half cut, and then they had the dinner, and it was just, they women had the roles, and it was just what it was, really. And it was actually when I was younger, it was a bit of a joke in our family at how much I hated alcohol. I didn't like the smell. I didn't like the taste. It was like, give her a drink. That's funny to watch her face type thing. So it was quite a shocker, really, when I eventually did grow to love it. But I would say that I first started drinking with my friends in the park when we were like 14, 15. And then, and I remember the first time I was ever really drunk, I was 15, and it was a New Year's Eve, and we were all drinking Diamond White, which was the big thing at the time, which was rocket fuel.
Yeah.
And I remember I had that, and I had some Southern Comfort, and I was supposed to be going home to a New Year's Eve party, and I threw up everywhere, and I just thought it was the worst thing, and I could not understand why anybody would want to drink, because it was so horrendous.
Yeah. I mean,
But I stuck to it. Stuck with
it's
it.
funny that, Diamond White was one of the first drinks I think I ever had with friends, down the park, in the woods, whatever. And yeah, it just seemed to be. Well, then I think we moved on to Merrydown, which was one bottle. So rather than just having all the little bottles of Diamond White, I'm sure you could probably get a big bottle of Diamond White, but we had the little ones. And it just seemed to be. I think at that age, I wasn't really into beer at that point. So I think cider was just quite an easy thing to drink, wasn't it? It was a bit fruity. It was kind of before the alco pops kind of came on the scene. And yeah, it just seemed to be the thing to do. But you're right. I mean, I didn't get absolutely paralytic or throw up. That was always my thing. I never really was someone that was sick when I was drinking. So I just could kind of, I'd get drunk, but like not throw up and not feel really that terrible. So it kind of just stuck. But you obviously had quite a bad experience that first time getting completely millered, really.
Yeah, and I remember, I've seen the photographs, because obviously it was New Year's and they were having a party, and I am white as a sheet, and my dad wouldn't let me go to bed because he was annoyed, so he wanted me to stay up and suffer, and so I had to sit there and I was freezing cold, and it was awful, absolutely awful. But my dad wanted me, if you're going to drink, you can deal with the consequences. And so, and everybody threw up on Diamond White. It was a lot stronger than we realised, I think.
Oh, he's like 7-8%, yeah.
Yeah, they're really, and like you said, they weren't cheap either.
No. I mean, it's funny that the parental thing to kind of, right, you will suffer through this, but it's like, are they trying to make us? Are they trying to punish us, or are they trying to toughen us up for it? Because they're like, well, if this is what you're going to do for your life, then you need to learn how to drink properly. Because that is the whole thing about, alcoholism, if you want to call it that. It's almost like we've done it wrong. Do you know what I mean? I get that feeling that we've done it wrong. We've not been able to handle our booze properly, like everyone else that can do it in moderation. We're the ones that are at fault here, and it's like. It's an addictive drug at the end of the day, and that normalising behaviour that, sometimes our parents have of like, you know, well, they need to learn how to handle it at a young age and all that. I think it's absolute bollocks, excuse my language. I think, you know, kids shouldn't be encouraged to drink. And I'm not saying that your parents were, but it just seems to be that kind of, let's let them understand what alcohol is from an early age so that they won't abuse it and all that. And I think, no, just kind of don't encourage it, you know.
No, yeah. Well, I mean, I think that on a meeting about a year ago or so, a woman said, we train our children to drink. And I thought, we bloody do, because, you know, it's kind of like, if we didn't, you know, our parents didn't know better. I didn't know better. Yeah. It was a rite of passage, wasn't it? When you know, I mean, it was a lot easier to drink underage when we were younger, but, you know, with my parents, you know, it was kind of like on your 18th birthday, everybody gets drunk. At weddings, you get drunk. At your 21st, you get drunk. And it's all hilarious and it's a joke and it's expected. And we are never shown that there is another way. Yeah. Because the way, it's so in our society that, you know, we don't actually realise there is another way. And I remember, and I still hear this now, where people say about their kids drinking, and they'll say, well, yes, I let them drink alcohol now because in France they do, you see, and they don't have an issue because they're having wine with their dinner. But it doesn't, you know, it doesn't work that way. You know, just because they're drinking in front of you, you don't know what they're doing behind your back.
I'm sure France still has massive alcoholics and things like that. Yes, they do. You know? I mean, I think they might be have a bit more decorum with it, but it's like, you know, just that. And I remember that whole thing as well. It was like, we have a massive underage drinking problem in the UK because, you know, you're not supposed to do it until you're 18. So the kids then go to the park and they do it. But then some parents go, well, we'd rather they did it in the house rather than out there on the street. It's like, well, wouldn't you rather they didn't do it at all? You know, let's discourage them from doing that. And it is, the UK thing is, it is that kind of forbidden fruit that, our parents frown upon it. Well, they're not really that bothered, are they? You know what I mean? I mean, unless you're getting in serious trouble with it, they're like, oh, you know, so-and-so came home. And I think by the time you get to 16, they're kind of like, well, you know what? What's the harm? Blah, blah, blah. All of that. And the France thing, drinking from 14, I think it is, with a glass of wine at a meal. I think you can do it in the UK as well, but we don't really encourage that. But it's just, I'm pretty sure France still has a massive underage drinking problem because, their parents are seeing them at a meal with a glass of wine, but they're not really that bothered about what they're doing at the weekend when they're out with their mates. You know, I don't think there's any real difference. The UK probably does have a bigger problem with underage drinking, but I don't know if it's the same as it was when we were younger. You know, as you said, we could get into... You know, I had a bit of stubble when I was 14, 15, so I would go in for some of the older lads as well. You know, it was like when we started, I would have to get older people to go in. Like, we would just stop random punters outside the shop and say, oh, mate, can you go in for us? And they would do it. And it's like, there's not a chance's hope in hell that I would do that for someone that was clearly underage now. But then I could go in, and it was like, there's no way they would know that I was... Just because I had a bit of stubble didn't mean I was 18. But I would get the booze, and then that would be us for the weekend. And you know, look where it led to. So how did your kind of teen years and you know, how did that develop? And then you went to uni in Southampton, did you say? Yeah. So how was that?
So I just loved alcohol once I started drinking it.
Once you got past that initial New Year's thing, it was
and we started, and I just didn't. It never crossed my mind that you didn't have to get hammered every time you drank. It just didn't. It was kind of what we did. Yeah. And I came across to everybody as this, you know, big character, really confident, because I was if I knew you, but I actually had horrendous social anxiety. And so for me, it was kind of, when we were going out, I used to get so nervous before I was going out, and it would be awful. Yeah. And the minute I had that first drink, it was like, and then I could start talking to people. So for me, I was like, I've found a cure. You know, people don't believe me that I'm shy, but now I've got this tool. But I couldn't ever. I was not one of those people who could moderate. Even right from the start, I would get hammered every time, always be the most drunk. I wouldn't say that, it was a big problem because I didn't go out that much. Well, I mean, I did eventually, but, it wasn't that I was out every night.
Yeah, it was like a weekend thing.
Yeah, but everybody did it. Everybody
did
got
it.
really drunk.
And like, yeah, I mean, I think I was the same. Like, I think I was definitely always the one that would go for it the hardest, and like all my mates were getting drunk, and it was like people maybe even at school or college, and I was absolutely. We used the word words like paralytic and things like that. Which is,
paralytic and mortalius.
Or bluttered or absolutely mortal. All these words, and it's like they're obviously not. They've got a negative connotation to them. But anyway, like. I think my mates were drinking, but were they watching it? I need to go around and speak to them all and go, did you actually know, like, well, this is where my limit is. I'm going to stop at this, so I'll be at that level of drunk, and then I'll stop. See, for me, I couldn't. I didn't have that thought process of, like, well, I've now had, I don't know, 7 pints and a couple of shots. That's my lot. No, I would just drink until wherever the night kind of took me. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was like, at one point, I used to drink brown ale, Newcastle brown ale.
Yeah.
And I would have a few bottles of that, and then I would be sick, and then just start drinking again. And now I'm like, that should have been your sign to go home, because it wasn't an easy drink to drink. It was because I was kind of, I was like one of the indie hippie kids, so I wanted
it was a great
to
drink.
Cool.
It was, yeah.
But
the bottles were like, the bottles were
and it was
iconic.
like, I'm one of the lads that can handle brown ale, which really. But I would carry on with even after I'd been sick, and it wouldn't cross my mind to stop. And it didn't. I've never had that off switch.
If you were being sick and you'd been drinking the Nookie Brown, and then you were like, whatever, and then got back on it, well, Beth's a legend. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
She's a machine.
Exactly.
Nothing's stopping her. Like, whoa, she needs to be out with us every time. And I think there is that kind of peer pressure mentality of, like, you just have to do it. That's what we're all doing. So we're just going to go out and get. No, I don't think many people go out just for a couple. Do you know what I mean? It's like if you're out in the town on the Friday, Saturday night, people are just falling out all over the place. Of course, there are people that can moderate, but yeah, obviously we weren't one of them. So was that like kind of your teen years, going out with friends, and then what happened when you moved to uni? Because obviously you've got Freshers Week, and which I think they need to put an end to that. It's crazy. I know I sound like an old fuddy-duddy, but I'm like, these kids are coming from home, they barely know how to boil an egg or some pasta, and then you're introducing them to this hedonistic week of just cheap booze. Most of them have never drank before,
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, so I mean, in between all of from sort of college, in the middle of all of that, unfortunately, my mum died. So I was only 17.
Sorry to hear that.
So that was a massive change for me I was definitely drinking a bit to cope with that. And every time I went out, I'd end up crying and so it definitely changed. It didn't change, I wasn't drinking every day, but it was a bit extra on top and, to use to cope. So, but when I went off to uni, I actually went to university in Middlesbrough, and Freshers Week, oh my word. I mean, I got there and I remember I lived with a girl from Ireland and a girl from Scotland, and the Scottish girl said when she first met me, she thought I was so square, which I found so insulting. Wow, yeah. But it was because I was so shy. And then the first night we went out, and obviously I was really, really nervous. So I'm knocking back the pints, and they had this thing on the stage, and it was Mike Fabgear, and it was a man, and I never forget, and it was a man, he was dressed like in the flares, and it was all like 60s stuff, and he ended up getting me on the stage, and I ended up singing and dancing with him and I got the nickname Party Girl because I was so, and the girls I was living with were kind of like, oh my word, she's not that much, shy.
She's come out of her shell. And also
come out of her shell.
Like, and I'm going to stereotype here, but to be stuck with a Scots person and an Irish lady, do you know what I mean? Like, two of the stereotypical biggest drinkers, on the planet, and I'm not saying they were, but
they were.
Yeah, they were. Well, the stereotype works, but yeah, that's it. So then you're thinking, well, yeah, they thinking I'm a bit of a square, shy bod, and then I have a couple of drinks, and I'm now known as party girl. Well, of course, the world's opened up to you, isn't it? This is what alcohol changes you into. So it's like, well, what else are you going to do? Yeah.
And so we drank a lot. And, we were pretty much known, the three of us were party girls. Claire used to drink her Buckfast before we even went out. And, and we would just drink that god-awful Lambrini, which was like £1 a bottle, but it was rocket fuel. And, oh, my goodness, the mess I got into with that. And we but even early on, though, at uni, I can remember thinking, I'm drinking every day. This is not right.
And what are you at this age? You're like 18, 19?
I was, how old was I? I think I was 19, because I went a little bit later.
And sorry, just to butt in with I have to say this, with the Buckfast, and was it Claire, did you say?
Yes,
she was the Scottish girl. So, like, there's a thing with Buckfast. I mean, I've drank it, but I never was like an avid. I've got mates who were like, they need their bucky,
Yeah.
There's a thing on the bottom of the glass bottle, right? I don't know if Claire knew this. There's a number from 1 to, I think it's either 30 or 32 or something like that. And I think 32, being the highest number, it's the viscosity of it. So it's from the bottom of the barrel. So it's obviously the stronger vintage of the number 1. So you'd see guys in the shop going like that, and they'd been looking at all the bottom of these bottles because they knew if they got a 32 or closer to that, it was going to get them more hammered. Yeah.
You've just totally unlocked a memory. I can remember I'd totally forgotten about that, but yes, she did used to do that, like some connoisseur with her Buckfast.
Yeah, I know, it's tonic wine, it's horrible stuff made by the Buckfast monks in the Abbey. Yeah, absolutely. So she was checking a number on the bottom. Yeah, it's crazy that. Yeah. Sorry, anyway, carry on, you were.
Yeah, so it was just, we just, and I can remember, I just used to make such a fool of myself. I don't know how many times I ended up a casualty. And I used to think, I wish people knew me without alcohol in me, because I'm so different. I'm actually nice. And I used to think I'm a bit of an arsehole when I drink. I would get and also I was very angry, obviously about what had happened with my mum. But I would it would come out when I drank. So I wasn't fighting or anything, but I would be very mouthy and think I could take I think I could take on anyone. I was famous for taxi ranks. I'd take anyone on. No one was having my taxi, and it was. I think I have got the best guardian angel ever, that I have survived my time at uni, because I was a nightmare.
I mean, talking to you now, Beth, I know we've just met, but like, and obviously that's a couple of years ago, but it's like you just couldn't imagine you to be like mouthy and get out of my taxi. But this is what the alcohol does. It changes people. Absolutely. It's such a weird drug that can't, like, people take it and it's like, oh yeah, it brings out the truth in people and all that. No, it turns people into absolute monsters. Not everyone, obviously, but I'm not saying you were a monster, but myself included. Like, if I drank, in fact, when I was in Aberdeen, my friend and me, we were heavy drinkers at that point, and he would drink vodka and I would drink Jack Daniels, and we'd go out on the night out, and then we'd end up fighting each other, not like physically, but we'd have these big fallout arguments and all that. And we were kind of living together at the time over this summer, and we just thought maybe we should switch drinks. So I started drinking vodka and he started drinking Jack Daniels, and we were absolutely fine. It's just certain drinks can turn you,
Yeah.
So you were on Lambrini and some Buckfast. What was kind of your favourite tipple at uni, or were you just everything and anything, whatever's cheapest?
Pints. Because it was also Ledette, the time of the Ledette. So absolutely. All the women drank, and the weight we put on. Honestly, it was one day, there was the girls I lived with and the other girls we hung out with were from Doncaster. And I remember we were walking past a shop window and we just looked at ourselves. We had these big moon faces, bright red. We'd put on a ton of weight, and it was because we were drinking pints.
Yeah.
But we were quite clever. So if we were having a night out, obviously we'd drink the Lamborghini before sometimes, but we'd always have something.
Yeah.
And then it would just be whatever was in the nightclub cheap, so Foster's or whatever. But if we didn't have a lot of money, we would have Stella, because a couple of pints of Stella would get you drunk.
Yeah.
So we kind of, it was the longevity of the night, decided on what we were going to drink. But it didn't matter what, because I can remember being in those nightclubs, everybody else would be dancing, and I would just be to the bar the whole time, gulping it down and just looking for alcohol.
Yeah. It's funny because I went to my first sober gig was 2022. I went over to see my mate Rob in London, and we went to Groove Armada. It was one of their, well, they said it was their final gig, but they're still out there touring. Anyway, I don't know. I was a bit gutted. I was like, well, I thought you guys were finishing up. But it was an amazing night, and I just couldn't, obviously there was a lot of people in there taking party drugs or whatever and drinking, but I was sober, and I had one non-alcoholic beer. And then my friend Rob was like, "Oh, do you want? I'm going to go back up the bar and all that." And I was like, "Nah, I'm good, But like what you were saying previously, I would have been to the bar, squeezing back into my dance spot in the middle of the floor, then going back up to the bar, probably going to the toilet for some other stuff we won't talk about. But do you know what I mean? And it was like, that was the night, and I was missing half of the gigs or the bands or whatever was going on because I was spending my time waiting for queuing at the bar, because it's not like you just walk straight up and you get a drink, is it? So yeah, no. It's crazy. So how did your uni, did it suffer at all, or were you did you pass?
Well,
did you finish it?
I did finish it, which was a miracle, because I actually got quite depressed in the third year and I didn't go out lots, but I finished my degree. And I got a 2-2, which we used to call a drinker's degree. It meant you'd had a good time, but you still managed to get the degree. And then I moved to Southampton, and I was really lucky because I got a really good job, really quickly with BT. So I had really good money for a young girl on my own, nobody around here. And that's when I did start drinking on my own, because I was extremely lonely. I was unhappy. I felt like I had nobody. And actually, when I went back for my graduation, I spent all of this money getting, the dress, the nails, the hair. I can't remember anything about our graduation ball. I got there. I can remember sitting down at a table, but I drank so much vodka. I never even used to drink vodka, but I drank so much. All I remember is waking up the next day at a friend's house. I know nothing about my graduation. Apparently, I made a bit of an arse of myself. But even the girls who I lived with, you look at the photographs. I don't, of the meal we had. I don't look like me. I'm very bloated. I'm just, and I remember we met up years later when by this point I was married and had a child and was very settled. And they, and one of them said to me that and it really upset me. She said, "You were just nothing then. You'd kind of gone, and it was because, And so I really struggled, down, not to get too bleak, but living down here on my own, a young girl, blonde hair, you're just a target. And, it was also in a time when it was all right for people to be very sexist in the office and a bit lechy and it was just...
Well, it wasn't all right, was it? But it kind of just happened and no one batted an eyelid. It wasn't all right.
You just wouldn't dare say anything.
Yeah.
So, I was dealing with a heck of a lot, and I definitely turned to alcohol to deal with it. And it was like every time I went out here, I got hammered, an absolute mess.
It sounds like...
And in a way, when I met we're divorced now, but my ex-husband and I, we were introduced to each other. You love each other. You both love a drink. The worst thing to put together, really. Yeah. But, we did. We loved partying. He was in a band. I was, I could go on, but he was also very safe. And so it was and so we got married really quickly. But I think... no disrespect to him, but I think some of it was I was so desperate to calm down and I needed something to stability. Stop what I was doing.
Yeah. And I suppose in a way, because it sounds like, you said in your third year you got quite depressed. And let's be honest, alcohol is a depressant. You know, that little 10, 15, 20, maybe an hour at the beginning that is a bit of a boost, and you're kind of almost coming up on the alcohol. Then it's just chasing that all night. But then the more you do it, the more you're getting depressed. And I suppose at the end of the third year, you're like, I've got to get my exams, or I've got to get my dissertation in. All of these things are building up and stressing you, but you're still drinking. So there's just that whole depression. And then to move to, yeah, good job, but you don't know anyone in Southampton. So it's like, well, how does someone our age go out and meet people? Well, you go out and drink, don't you? So you're just kind of adding to that kind of loneliness and depression. And then I guess you've met your now, you know, that future husband, and it was like, right, I want some stability, and I guess he brought you happiness. You both brought each other happiness for a while. So why wouldn't you?
Oh yeah, definitely. You know, and it was kind of, but I mean, even before that, I mean, it's quite important to my story to know that I've been diagnosed with ADHD.
Right.
And I know everybody's going to be like, oh, everybody, but it's you know.
No, but it is a thing, and it is that you're lacking the dopamine receptor in your head, so you're constantly chasing that, and alcohol is a great filler for that dopamine hit. So yeah, it goes hand in hand, and it is the way.
But I mean, it was when I wasn't in Southampton for very long, and it was one night. I woke up in bed and I thought, I'm depressed. I'm going to do something. The next day I went into work and I said to my boss, could I have 2 weeks off work, please? He said, yeah. I took myself off to Greece on my own.
Right.
I caused absolute carnage over there because, again, I was really lonely. I was on my own. During the day I was fine. On a night time, again, I think this guardian angel was looking after me. Yeah. But, you know, I was getting hammered. And I just remember, you know, there was one night and there was two girls felt really sorry for me, invited me to go with them. By the end of the night, I think they were thinking, you know, like when you see those films, like, you know, like Blind Date, that really old film where
I thought you were going to say Shirley Valentine, but I'm sure that was out way before you went off to Greece, you know. But
I think it would have been it was in the 90s. So,
in the 90s? Yeah, that was a 90s film, wasn't it?
Yeah. But no, it wasn't Shirley Valentine.
She didn't go off.
It was more The Hangover.
Yeah, The Hangover, God, yeah.
And it was how I came back safe. So it was all of this, so that, you know, there was signs of ADHD with my impulsivity, and it is the dopamine chasing and boredom. I just detested being bored, and alcohol is a great way of getting rid of boredom.
Of course it is. Yeah. For a short while, but then, I mean, I drank to get rid of the boredom and escapism, but I think that whole thing where once you start drinking, and if you're drinking to oblivion like I did, and it sounds like you did, you kind of, you know, you're just kind of like, right, switching off from reality almost, you know, you're just kind of like, right, I'm going to go in, I'm staying, so you're doing solo drinking in the house, and it's like, see you later, you know, I'm going to go into this little bubble for the evening or whenever. So what age was this when your kind of drinking became like a solo thing?
It was when I moved here, so I would have been about 23.
Right.
And so I would go and, you know, I'd do this job, and it was, you know, quite high powered, and I was respected, and I was winning awards and doing really well.
Yeah.
And then I would come home and I would just be lonely. I'd be on my own. It gave me something to do, and it wasn't tons. It was, it is for some, a bottle, but it was enough to get me drunk and fall asleep.
Yeah.
And so I was using it as a crutch, but it was even like work dues. I had an actual physical fight at a work due. This is for, you know, a big corporation. To be fair, this wasn't my fault. Right. This was another girl's fault.
Yeah.
She started it. But it was kind of just things like that would happen. And I'm just so impulsive. I would make terrible decisions. It was just awful. Yeah. But I'd say I didn't consider stopping, but I did go to AA when I was 23.
I was going to ask, did you think it was an issue? So obviously, sorry, carry on. Yeah. So you thought...
But I went there, and they were so lovely to me. And I was such a hypocrite because I smoked at the time, but I hated how smoky it was in there because it was when you could smoke.
Oh, wow. Right, yeah.
Yeah, and they were so lovely to me, but there was like a lady, really glamorous, and she's telling me, you know, how, it gets to the stage where you're drinking cough medicine, and that's what she was doing. So I just looked and I thought, but I'm not doing that. this is not for me. I shouldn't be here. You know, they aren't like me.
Yeah.
So I left and I never went back until years later.
And
but it
then
was
they
kind of,
said
it
to you-
almost told me that I didn't have a problem because I wasn't like them.
It's funny that I lost my license when I was 21, driving license, drink driving, and my folks were like, you should probably go and see AA or something like that, or I think it was suggested by the magistrate or something like that. So I went to a meeting, and at the break when we were going out for a fag, because I don't know if we could smoke in that, maybe it was because the hall wouldn't smoke, you wouldn't smoke in there. Anyway, this guy came up to me, he goes, I don't think you've got a problem, I don't think you're an alcoholic, you don't have that like 1,000-yard stare, and you don't seem haunted. And I was like, I'm fucking 21, mate, do you know what I mean? Like, anyway, I went home and I was like to my folks, I was like, yeah, the guy in there said I don't have a problem, so, you know. And I, like, had I continued going to the meetings, like, I don't think it got obviously a lot worse, but it wasn't as bad then. Yeah, I'd lost my license, but I wasn't drinking first thing in the morning like I ended up doing. So yeah, even if I'd gone to a few more meetings, I would have probably been like, yeah, I'm not that bad, you know what I mean? So you're probably right, but I think, you know, I've been to meetings now and I'd be like, there's no way I would say that to anyone that come to their first meeting. It's insane to say to someone you don't have a problem. So yeah, so sorry, you went to a couple of AAs then, yeah?
Yeah, I went to one when I was very young, and then when I got older, I went to AA, and you know, and I went to some lovely meetings. But again, it was that social anxiety. It was so hard for me to go in, and also, you know, by this point, I was really low in myself anyway. So when you're going somewhere, and you know, there was some people that were friendly, but it was also still quite cliquey, and I don't want to criticize AA because I think they're great. But again, I wasn't as bad as the people who were sharing. So I felt like I shouldn't be here. I'm taking the space of somebody who has got a problem, but because I don't drink like these people, then I don't have a problem. So I'm just being dramatic. And I actually, again, used it as a reason why I didn't have a problem, because I was being over dramatic, because I wasn't drinking every day. You know, I've never drank at breakfast. You know, I didn't have a DUI. I hadn't lost my kid. You know, there was none of this. So I thought that I'm just being typical me, being over dramatic. There's nothing wrong with the way I drink. And so it didn't help me in that sense, because I just felt like an imposter.
Yeah. I mean, they always say look for the similarities and not the differences. And I think that's, you know, a lot of people go to the meetings and they go, oh, yeah, no, I'm not as bad as that person. Even myself, who was pretty bad, like, you know, extreme, I was still going into the meetings and go, well, I'm not doing what that guy's doing. There was one guy in a meeting who was drinking boot polish. He'd managed to work out some weird way of liquefying it and drinking it. I mean, he'd absolutely wrecked his stomach line, and he wasn't, you know, probably long for this place because he'd completely wrecked it. But he was sober, you know, and that was the thing. But I was like, well, I'm not drinking boot polish. I was drinking cough meds and I was drinking mouthwash, but I wasn't drinking boot polish. So, you know, I was like, obviously, I'm still a really bad case, but I'm like, well, I'm not as bad as that guy. So, yeah, I see what you're saying. It's like you've got to look for the similarities. But, yeah. So how did it kind of develop through your 20s, I suppose? And what age did you get married the first time then? Did you?
I was married at 26.
Okay, so yeah, so a few years after going to Southampton, yeah.
Yeah, I think 25 or 26. I'm terrible with these things. 25 or 26, and I had my little boy at 27.
Right.
So, you know, and it was kind of.
Sorry, did you abstain for the pregnancy?
Oh gosh, yeah. And I've never found it hard not to drink because it was for somebody else.
Yeah, the majority of the women I've had in the podcast and other women I speak to, when they got pregnant, they stopped it. And it's like, I don't want to put something in my body that's going to harm my unborn child, but as soon as I stop breastfeeding, I'm going to start putting that same poison back into me. It's like, how is it not going to, like, okay, the child is small, but if there's something that can harm a child, then why do we still then put it back into ourselves? It's crazy, isn't it? You know?
And it's quite ironic because so when I found out I was pregnant with my little boy, I was a smoker as well, so I stopped smoking. And then when when I'd had my little boy, I thought, well, I'm not going to start smoking again because, that's really harmful.
Yeah.
But it did not cross my mind that I wouldn't start drinking again.
Because nobody tells you the dangers. Nobody knows. And it's like, that's fine. Okay, it's going to harm your baby, but it's not going to harm you. But that's the kind of thought process, isn't it? Smoking, yeah, you've done well. You've given up for 9 months. Why would you start that again? But you're going straight back to the booze, yeah.
Yeah. And I breastfed, and it's like I knew, because this is the really strange thing. Whenever I got pregnant, I would lose so much weight. On all of my children, I've had to have scans because they've thought I'm carrying these tiny babies, but it's not. It's because, not so much with the third one, but because I would have put so much weight on with alcohol that the minute I stopped drinking, the weight would just drop off me. So I would, put on a stone and then have these quite big babies. And so, then it was kind of, so there was lots of reasons why it was good that I'd stopped for me. And then I would breastfeed for quite a long time and it was, my brain was telling me, that to try and do things to stop me going back to alcohol. I knew. And I used to sometimes one of my best friends from home developed an allergy to alcohol.
Right.
And I was really jealous because I thought, if I could get that, it's another reason to stop, because when I was pregnant, it was a reason to stop. And so I could actually do it then. But when I wasn't when I wasn't pregnant, then I would just go back to drinking because there was no reason to stop. I wasn't bad enough to stop.
And why do you think at this point the pull, because like you're saying you wanted a reason to stop, but why do you think the pull back to alcohol was so strong at that point? Because obviously you've given up for kind of 9 months or for however long with the breastfeeding. Like, why do you think it was the kind of peer, this is what we do at the kind of works events, Christmas, whatever. Do you think it was that, or do you think it was you just enjoyed the alcohol? Because obviously at this point you're thinking, I do want to give up, but I need a reason to give up, and I'm not allergic, so why wouldn't I not drink?
Yeah, I think a lot of it was, when I had my little boy, it was really lonely. My partner used to work away on the rigs a lot, and he was also in a band, so he would go off and, he wouldn't be in a lot.
Yeah.
And I'd drink because I was bored a lot of the time, just something to do on an evening. I also, I was using it a lot to get rid of feelings. I was desperately unhappy. I was delighted to have my little boy, but I couldn't really make friends because I was so shy. The only time I wasn't shy was with alcohol. The only time I went out was with my friends who drank a lot. So it was kind of to have that company I was craving. I mean, we couldn't go out very much anyway because we didn't have a babysitter, but on the odd occasion we did, I would just go wild.
Yeah.
And it was always with my friends who drank a lot, because that was the crowd we'd always been with. And so it was kind of just normal to go back. And then I would say the next day I'd feel horrendous and I wouldn't want to. And I also just felt guilty because I knew at the back of my mind I was drinking too much, even then. But it was a way of getting through the evenings for me and just coping with feelings, definitely.
Yeah. And would it have ever occurred to you to go out and not drink? Because with me, like, obviously now I go out and I don't drink, but back then, if someone had said to me, why don't you go out and have a everyone else is drinking but you're not, I couldn't have even fathomed that thought process. It was like, well, no, everyone's doing it, why would I not drink?
No, exactly. And I know that it just wouldn't have crossed my mind. If I couldn't drink, I just wouldn't have bothered going.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Because I didn't see a night out as, if somebody offered to go to the cinema, I'd be like, oh, we don't get to drink there. Well, why would I want to do that?
You can now. There's bars that I've gone to.
Yeah, no, and we went. Yeah, we saw the other week. I was like, oh, for goodness sake.
Yeah, and I used to do that.
Now.
Well, I used to do that, and I think I went to see the new Blade Runner film when it came out. That was probably, I don't know, about 7 years ago. And I went with my mate, and I think I'd had a few drinks before we went in because he was driving, and then I went and got a pint. But like, it's a long film, so like halfway through it, I needed to go and have a wee. You know, it was like, this is not good. Do you know what I mean? And then you're sat there bored, like, okay, you're watching the film, but because you've got a buzz going on, you're like, why am I sitting in here? Like, you know, I'd rather be at home watching a film so I can keep going and topping up. But
Exactly.
yeah, the alcohol is everywhere we go. So yeah. So, like, how did the alcohol, was it getting worse at this point, or do you think it was kind of a steady build, or?
Well, it's funny, but I remember at the time my ex-husband saying, should we have another child? And one, I was desperate for another child, but also at the back of my mind I thought, because you need to calm down, and I knew that if I was pregnant I would calm down. And so I had my daughter.
This is your second one? Yeah.
And then after that, it was I cut down my hours at work, so every Wednesday night I would be finished work for the week, and so I would always get hammered on my own. My husband would go to bed or whatever, and so then it started ramping up that I was drinking on a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and so it was ramping up on an evening that I was drinking, and it just kind of, and practically every time I went out, I did something or I said something I shouldn't, and it was becoming messy. And then my husband and I eventually split up, and it was a nasty, difficult divorce, and I really struggled with anxiety, but I was terrified that if I went to the doctors and said I was struggling, that it would be on my record and I could lose the kids. So I didn't admit to anyone I was struggling, but I used to drink to kind of deal with, and it wasn't all the time, but I definitely used drink to deal with the stress of, what was happening. And then, I had my new partner. And I remember thinking, if I get with anyone else, they mustn't drink. But he did drink. And I mean, we're married now and we've got a little boy. And since I've stopped drinking, he hardly, he really doesn't drink much at all. It was obviously I was the bad influence. Yeah. But when we didn't have the kids, we would drink a lot, and I would drink a lot.
But he could probably moderate it.
Relying on it.
Yeah.
Sorry?
He could probably moderate it and, take it or leave it type thing. Yeah.
He would get to that point where he knew he'd had enough.
Yeah.
But I never got to that point. There got to a point where all bets were off for me, and I just wouldn't even really care where I was, what was happening. All I was interested in was my next drink. Yeah. And that was it. And I would argue with you. That was all I cared about.
And it's so dangerous as well, and not to be sexist, but like for women, going out on a night out, and then you said making your way home, how many times, or staying at a friend's, you didn't know how you got home. It's so dangerous because you're in such a vulnerable position. Same with guys as well, but more so for women. I did get in a few scrapes because I'm not a fighter, but I managed to obviously piss a few people off the wrong way, and I've got scars to prove it. But it's like, it could have been so much worse as well. And I think, the world is a dangerous place. I'm glad I'm not kind of out drinking in it now, because it's a bit crazy. But I think, So did you get to kind of a rock bottom that kind of thought, right, this is it, enough's enough? What happened with that?
Well, I kept, over the years, I've always had months off where, I've thought I'm going to do this, or I may go to AA a couple of times, but then it was basically willpower alone. Yeah. And what happens with willpower, it just runs out. And
you start feeling better as well. You get your skin gets better. You think you lose a bit of weight, and you're like, you know what? You've got clarity of mind, and you're like, well, alcohol was never really a problem, was it? So it's like you go back and you start having a few glasses here and there, and then
Yeah, I mean, I went to, it was my granddad's 90th birthday, and I got so drunk. My poor cousin, I took her with me. I don't think she's ever going to be over that night. The amount of Prosecco we drank. She said, this is what people often say to me. They either have the best or the worst night of their night. She says it was, the most exciting night. But I'm like, because it's a one-off.
Yeah.
But, bless her, she ended up throwing up, and And I woke up the next morning with a massive black eye, and I had no recollection of it. I did remember later tripping up in my granddad's lounge, and it was carpet onto concrete. And I had all of this, and then after that, and my cousin did say to me, that could have been life-changing injuries. It was awful. I was flying back to Southampton. I had this great big black eye, and it was on the flight with all of the bloody Great North runners. And there's me with all of this concussion, and anyway, so that I got sober for 10 months.
Yeah.
After that. And it's exactly what you said, that it was kind of, it got to 10 months and I started to think, well, hang on a minute, if I can do it for 10 months, why can't I do it? It shows I've got control. And my husband took me out for my birthday, and we went for cream tea, and they were having champagne, and I had a glass, and that was it. Back on.
Yeah. And how did it go back quite quickly to you kind of your previous levels? Yeah.
Yeah, it was, I think it was one night I went out and I had 2 glasses of wine with a meal, and I thought I was great, I was fixed, and then it just went, and I was searching for it, much worse than before. I was getting quite nasty with my husband, if he didn't want to have, because he kind of was stopping as well. And he was, if he didn't want to drink, I would get a bit nasty with him because I really wanted to drink. And lockdown was an absolute disaster. That's when I really tipped, because we had all of that sunshine. If you remember, we bought one of those, because remember everybody was buying the inflatable hot tubs.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, it was just a party summer. I mean, I was in rehab when we went into the first lockdown, and then I came out and I'd got myself gone through some breakup and thing, and then I was in my own little flat and met them new neighbours, were talking over the fence, and it was just a party summer, and there was no one to stop me drinking, so I just went for it,
that was me. It was, I'm in the hot tub getting a tan, I was furloughed, I was, we were doing pub quizzes every night. Well, you can't go to a pub quiz and not get pissed.
Yeah.
So,
but then also, was the drinking starting earlier and earlier in the day? Because you're furloughed, you're in the hot tub. Well, look at me. I've got a hot tub. I'm glamorous. I've got a glass of Prosecco or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. And there was, I can remember there was an influencer every day. She did a thing where it was the 4 o'clock wine. But I started at 12 because it felt like you were on holiday. And my husband was still working.
Yeah. So
I was a little bit bored. I hated having ADHD and trying to homeschool somebody. It was horrific. And so I got the best suntan I've ever had, but I'd be out in the garden 12 o'clock every day. I'd be like, well, I'll tell you what, I'll just have one. But it was it had got to the point where if I managed to just have 2.5 glasses of wine, 2.5 bottles of wine in a day, I was doing well.
Wow.
And that I'd never ever been like that. It had always been 1 to 2, or loads more, obviously, if I was out.
Yeah, because it's that one, and it's, when I was drinking wine, if you cracked open the second bottle, then you'd have to drink it type thing. And then when it crept into a third bottle, it wasn't long before you were drinking all 3. I mean, that was in my 20s. I lived in Cambridge, and I would get 3 for a tenner. So it was obviously absolute paint stripper wine, but I didn't care. It was like, I'd have a red, a white, and a rosé, and but I knew that if 3, it's a lot of wine, I was fine for work the next day because I was in my 20s. But if I went to 4, I was absolutely useless the next day. So I knew my limits at that point. But I would have been I had housemates. I don't know what they must have thought. I was just in my room because we were all kind of room dwellers at that point, and I just must have been in there just listening to loud music, and I don't know. It's crazy, but yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think that first place I lived in, Southampton. And I lived with a nurse, a doctor, and somebody else, and they were all, professionals. And then you had me smoking. None of them smoked. I'm smoking in my bedroom. I'm drinking. I was so chaotic. And I remember feeling the victim. I'd be like, they're so horrible to me. And now I'm like, oh my goodness, I'd have got me kicked out ages ago.
Yeah.
But when I left, I remember feeling, they were horrible. And now I'm
they're just having a nice quiet life. having a nice meal in the evening, whereas I would come in and God knows what I was eating, and I'd be mostly probably looking in other people's cupboards to see what I could pilfer. You know, it was like, oh,
Having to replace their alcohol.
they've got some cheese, I'll just take a slice off of that, and that'll be my cheese sandwich for the dinner. Because that was the thing, it's like, you know, I had a good job, but most of my money went on booze. So like I would come home and it would be like, right, what am I going to buy tonight? Well, I've got tenner, so I'm going to buy fags and I'm going to buy the wine, and that would be my dinner. Yeah. So where did it kind of, you know, COVID's obviously, you know, a terrible time for us all, but it was that kind of party summer where everyone was. There's so many people that have the drinking levels increased so much over COVID, and I think there's still a lot. Well, I know there's still a lot of people that are dealing with the kind of fallout from that. You know, so where did it go with you with COVID? Because you got sober in 2021 in June, was it?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I obviously I drank a lot during that summer, and I did keep trying to have time off. And over the years, I'd had all, you know, these months but I remember the whole time just thinking, why did I start drinking again after that 10 months? And I regretted it so badly. And then we'd do things like, you know, dry January, and my husband would be able to do it and I would hate it and I'd be furious. And I actually rang the NHS, a helpline, and I spoke to a lady, and, you know, she didn't think I needed detox. I didn't drink enough for that. And I just wasn't bad enough still, but I was bad enough. And so I remember speaking to her, and she said, you know, really, because I managed to stop again because I was talking to her. Mm-hmm. And she said, well, is there anything I can do to help? I said, well, would you be able to just ring me occasionally? Just because I find that if I've got accountability, I'm better. And she said, oh no, you know, once you're discharged, that's it. And I thought, oh. And then what happened was I was trying again, and I kept trying. And then we had this meal. It was just after lockdown, and we had some people over for a meal, and I'd worked my socks off for this meal, and they didn't appreciate it, and I hadn't planned on drinking, and I got hammered that day. And the next day I woke up and I thought, you can't do that every time somebody upsets you. And I decided to stop. And then luckily I, by accident, found an online community of women, and I contacted them. And then I met Linda, who's my best friend now. She's an Irish lady. And we ended up chatting. And I suppose in a way she was like a sponsor, but, you know, an unofficial one. And so I got really involved online, and I went to every online meeting available, and the time just started to tot up. Yeah. And eventually, you know, I did get sober, and obviously 4 years later, but I had got to the point where I just didn't have any control over it anymore. I was never going to be that person who could have a couple of drinks. I don't want a couple of drinks. No. If you'd said to me now, if we give you, you know, I know there is the tablet, isn't there? But if we give you a tablet that means you'll only ever want 2 drinks, I'd be furious. Yeah. I don't drink for alcohol. I drink to get hammered. Yeah. So what's the point of that?
No, absolutely, Beth. And well done on 4 years. Well, 4 years plus. I mean, that's just amazing. And it's crazy how quickly the time flies. And it's like, I thought the other day, God, if I hadn't got sober, you know, because I was always like, oh, well, I'll get sober tomorrow, or I'll do it the next week. And you know, and time just goes on. And I could have been here. Oh, I probably wouldn't be here, you know, 5 years later, still drinking. And it's horrible. But then when you do it, the time just ticks up, and you're like, wow. And I'm, you know, 4 years sober. And it's just amazing. But it's that whole thing about, just having 2 drinks. Like, I don't really mess with the alcohol-free stuff anymore, because not because it's a trigger, but I wasn't really, you know, it's like I'll have it when I go out for a meal. Maybe I'll have a 0 Guinness, but for me it wasn't about the taste or the flavor, or, you know, it was the feeling that I got from the drug that is alcohol. That was what it was, and I wanted more and more and more of it. So yeah, I think if people weren't as bad, you know, then alcohol-free stuff's great, but for me it's like, nah, I don't really bother with it anymore, because like you, I was drinking to get wasted and not just for the taste of it. Yeah.
I mean, it's quite funny because the only non-alc that I really enjoy, and it's the taste I genuinely like, is the, and I know I'm going to pronounce this wrong. It's the Freixenet. I
Oh
would say
yeah.
Freixenet. So
I
I
call it
love that.
Frexinet, but yeah, Freixenet,
Yeah,
yeah.
I got pulled up and told it was Freixenet,
Oh,
but I still can't do it without doing a thing, so it's
yeah.
pointless. But last weekend, my husband was drinking rosé, which I used to really enjoy, and he accidentally gave me his drink, and he took my Frexinet, and the taste, it was,
Ah,
I took a drink and I spat it out, and I was like, what is that? And then obviously he felt awful, but it was like, it was never about the taste. I thought I loved rosé. I thought I missed that gorgeous taste, and when I had it, I was like, ugh, it's like paint stripper.
well, they
And
say
it
it's
was
an
quite a shock.
they say alcohol, or like, well, especially like, things like whiskey and vodka and all that is an acquired taste. I think even beer's an acquired taste, because you wouldn't give a beer to someone that's never had it before. They're not going to like it straight away. They eventually kind of force themselves to,
We
to
train
drink it. We
ourselves.
train ourselves. So, like, I always wonder, like, because like at the end, I was drinking vodka like it was water. I could literally down a half bottle in less than a minute, which was ridiculous. If I had like a sip of vodka now, I'd probably be sick, because my body's not used to it anymore. And I mean, I might like it, so that's probably why I don't do it. But
Yeah, no,
it's
no, it's not.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I do. Did I actually like it? Probably not. I think it was more like a medicine to me at the end, so I would just kind of force it down. But it was very easy to drink it at the end, straight vodka, where most people have to mix it and things like that. So it's, yeah. So that was you then. In June, you got sober, and did you use any, apart from the kind of women's group online? Did you do any other help, or what other things did you do? Did you have
No,
like a withdrawal or anything, or were you just, because I don't think
no, but that
you weren't
that was
drinking
what
every
I was.
day,
I
were
mean,
you?
no, I was drinking every day at the
Right,
end.
right.
But it was more, I was exhausted, and my sleeping was terrible, and I definitely got quite down. But I wouldn't say I didn't need a medical detox or anything like that. But I did things like I had a blog. It doesn't exist anymore because it was horrendous. But I had a blog, where I was doing a lot of writing. I absolutely threw myself into the sober community
Yeah.
because I felt like that's what I needed to do. But I didn't, I did used to have non-alcs. I would drink the beers if I felt really cravey, because I wasn't a big beer drinker by this point. It was wine. It didn't trigger me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And also, when I did try the non-alc wines, I thought they were disgusting, but then I realised it wasn't. It was because I was looking for the feeling wine gave me. But you're not going to get that without the alcohol.
No, no.
And so I would use that occasionally, if we were out or on holiday or whatever, just to to feel a bit like I'm an adult as well. Because it's weird, isn't it? You feel like you're not an adult if you're not drinking.
Yeah, but why have we still got that kind of hold over us, that like, oh, if you're out in a bar or a restaurant, you have to have like a bottle or a glass or something like that. It's like, and then
I
also,
know.
like, if you're just having a soft drink, like I went a few years ago to watch football with my dad, and he was doing rounds with his mates, and they kept on going, do you want another one? And I was like, I've got a pint of vodka, pint of orange and soda. And it was like, that's going to do me the whole night. It's a pint. I'm not dehydrated. Do you know what I mean? But they kept on, are you sure you want, get another one? I was like, no, guys. Honestly, you guys do your rounds, because they're just going, scooping them back,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
10 months I started to struggle a bit again, where I was just bored, and I was feeling a little bit like I'd lost a bit of my identity, because I wasn't the big fun person anymore. But that was where I suppose having a community and being able to talk about it helped get me through that bit.
And I think, 8 or 9 months, you've got that year looming, but it's still a bit of a ways away. And it's like complacency can set in, boredom,
Oh,
as you
absolutely.
say. You're like, why am I doing this to myself? Because I feel great now. I've maybe started exercising or whatever. And, my in my case, my family and friends were talking to me again. And it's like, oh, and there's those little niggling thoughts that are like, yeah, you'll be fine. But you've obviously got to kind of ignore those thoughts and go, no, do you know what? Like, why would I want to go back to the way it was? Because it's crazy. So well done you for obviously not giving in at the 8 9 months, because it's a tough. Even after a year, it can be tough. You know, I was speaking to someone the other
Yeah,
day,
and it's
and he'd done a year.
it's also
Yeah,
getting it out of your head that it's not a treat.
yeah.
Because I remember crying at a shopping, well, there's a nice shopping centre in Portsmouth, Gunwharf Quays. And whenever we went there, it was kind of part of the event was that we'd go shopping
Hmm.
and then we'd have a couple of glasses of wine and a meal.
Yeah,
And I remember crying because I wanted my glasses of wine after my shopping. And and you know, you were grieving the life you thought you had,
yeah.
because also you've got a bit of euphoric recall coming in as well, where you know you've forgotten the really crappy bits where you'd have those two glasses of wine and be all lovely, but then you go home and you're looking for more wine when you get home.
Oh,
You know,
absolutely.
so
Well, it's like a Pavlovian response almost. It's like, well, we go and do this thing, and then we know we're going to get a drink at the end of it, so we'll go through whatever it is, you know. Like I remember when I used to go out with my ex and the kids, and we'd maybe go to a museum or whatever, a play park or, you know, soft play. But then if we went for lunch, we had to go to a pub because I knew that then I could have a drink and she'd drive and I would have a couple of pints, maybe 3 pints in that time. I could just go and scoop them back. So that was my treat, my reward. And if we'd gone to a place where it was like, oh, you know, I don't fancy going to that pub or whatever, let's just go to this cafe, I would be like, oh, do you know what I
yeah,
mean? You've
right.
almost you've taken that away from me. It's like this was my only thing I was looking forward to in that day. But actually, the rest of the day was great. You know, look back in hindsight, we did great fun. We do all these different things and all that. But for me, I was just that single track mind that I wanted the booze. Yeah,
But
yeah.
did you not find that you would rush them too? Sometimes you'd rush activities because you wanted to get to the drink.
Oh God, yeah, 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 yeah. I mean, sometimes even if they were going off and doing shopping or whatever, and I'd be like, well, I just need to go and get this thing from another shop, and I'd sometimes not nip into a shop and get myself like a little, you know, little like cookery type wine, you know, the little small quarter
Yeah,
bottles or
yeah.
whatever, and I would just quickly down that just to kind of tide me through. Yeah, I do all sorts of horrible things. Do you know what I mean? But that was the only thing that I cared about, you know. And it was like if someone saw me or whatever, I didn't care. Do you know what I mean? It was
No.
like it was just that. So what is it you're doing now, Beth? Are you're doing a lot in the kind of recovery world, aren't you?
Yeah, so I've had kind of Instagram for a while, which I
Hmm.
dip in and out of. I do TikTok as well, which I kind of I'm more into the TikTok
Okay,
side, you get,
okay,
you know.
yeah, yeah,
But because I find the Instagram on the sort of sobriety side, it's quite difficult. I find it's really slowed down to sort of
yeah.
get visibility.
Hmm.
But also I'm one of the founders of the SOS Collective, which is the Sober Online Sisters. So what we do is it's completely free. That was what
Hmm.
was important, because the only reason that I could get sober was because it was the help that I got, the organization isn't there anymore, but it was completely free.
Hmm.
Whereas the way that I was and the way that a lot of women are, it's not even necessarily for me the money. It was I didn't want to spend that money on myself,
Yeah.
even though I needed it. So I wouldn't have paid to have the help. So it's really important that we're free. So we do online meetings, we've got WhatsApp groups. I've actually created two courses which we do now. So there's one called the 30-day reset,
Hmm.
and it's for people who are just starting out, trying to be sober, and it's kind of just giving you information on alcohol, what to expect in the first 30 days, things you might not know about alcohol as well, about your health.
Yeah.
And then we have another course which is Reset and Beyond. And it's just another 30 days where it goes a little bit deeper. And the reason that I did that, that's just starting this month. It's because a lot of the people have been doing the 30-day reset every month. And I'm like,
Yeah.
you must be bored.
Yeah. Yeah.
So because it's the connection, they love chatting every day and checking in, and so yeah, that's starting next month. So we do meetings. I think we have 9 meetings a week, but we've
Wow.
also got a group called Nova, which is for women who are under 100 days. And then we've got another one called Solara, and that's for women who are 2 years plus. So
Wow.
they can, go deep, people who are wanting to get a bit deeper.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
well,
Yeah.
women. And yeah, so it's, we only started off in January and,
Wow. And
we've
how
got,
many have you got
yeah,
in there now? Are you allowed to say, because obviously you don't want to
yeah, I
mention names.
think we've got about 300
Wow.
on our. Yeah, it's done really, really
That's
well. And
amazing.
like I say, it was TikTok.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
we've got a lot of ladies from America, which is brilliant. But it was quite hard to kind of reach the people from the UK, which is why I did TikTok. And now we've got a mix of UK, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, and so it's proper, global now.
Yeah.
So we do meetings during the day and then in the evening. Um, and and we are gonna. There's more we are going to do,
Hmm.
definitely. But it's obviously we've only been going since January. We're now a not-for-profit company.
Yeah, yeah.
So we've actually done a lot. We're completely based on donations, and we've been really lucky that the ladies have been super kind, and
Yeah,
everything goes onto providing the service because
yeah.
everybody is the same as me. It needs to be free so that people can access it.
Well, because not everyone can afford to get help, and that's so commendable that you're keeping it free because, Motivate over here, that I do a bit of peer mentoring for now, it's completely free, and you know the majority of the people that you get walking through the doors don't have a lot of money to spend because they've been spending it on alcohol and probably got themselves in debt or drugs as well, and it's we don't all have money to go to the Priory, let's be honest, to get us
No.
sober. And I think even if you throw loads and loads of money at any type of therapy and whatnot, it's not always guaranteed to work. So yeah, the more you can get just like-minded people and have that connection to others, and as you say,
Exactly.
you've got people that are at different levels. They can help the others. That's what helped me. I'm sure that's what helped you as well. Listening to
Yeah.
people's stories, hearing that yeah, we're not alone. That there are other people that have gone there before us, and that's the thing. It's looking for the similarities like we did we were talking about at the beginning. There's so many people that you'll speak to and you go, oh my God, they're exactly the same as me. They were doing the same thing. Like hiding bottles behind the cistern in the bathroom and all those types of things. I thought I was the only one and it really wasn't at all. So
Well, you
yeah, well
see,
done
I
you.
always prided myself that I didn't hide bottles and things. But then I was like, hang on a minute. I wouldn't put anything in the recycling so people couldn't see how much I was drinking. So just because I put it in the bin doesn't mean I wasn't hiding it.
Yeah, yeah. I remember, I wish I still had the picture of it. When I moved into that little flat during COVID, they came to pick up the bins, and I think it must have been every 2 weeks. And the first time they came to pick up my blue bin for the recycling, it was all the bottles. I had a picture of it, and it was almost full. I literally was heaving this thing to the bottom of the drive to get it out for the bin men. It was ridiculous. Yeah, I never forget that. But I did take a picture, but I don't know where it is. I can't seem to find it. But it was ridiculous. But like I had no one to be accountable for at that point, so I was just putting them out in the wheelie bin. But you're obviously hiding the bottles. That's still secret, isn't it?
Yeah. And I can remember in lockdown being mortified at the amount of bottles we had because also everybody was encouraging you to bulk buy. So we were going to Costco and buying, loads of wine,
Yeah,
which for me, it's not like, oh, let's make that last. It's like, how much can I get through tonight?
yeah.
But in our garden, we had bottles in this bin, in this one. We were having to go to Asda and get rid of them. And then we saw people we knew, and I would be like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
But
Well,
yeah,
I
it
don't
was
know.
crazy.
I don't know if I'd still been with my ex during COVID. I don't know how I'd have coped because my drinking was like they'd go off to work in school, and I would either be at work or not working, and I would be able to get my booze, get it in the house, hide it, and then dispose of it. But I would have had to be buying it in bulk, like you're saying, and that wouldn't have gone down well. I wouldn't have been able to smuggle that into the house, and
No.
yeah, I mean, I would have found ways because that's what we do. We crafty little buggers. So yeah,
Oh, absolutely.
yeah. So Beth, what advice would you give to someone that was kind of sober curious, early days? Obviously, you're kind of versed in that now. So what advice would you give people?
I would say get connections.
Hmm.
They say, don't they, that the opposite of addiction is
Yeah.
connection. I hope
Yeah.
that's right.
No, no, absolutely
Um,
right. Yeah, yeah.
but it's the only thing that's worked for me. Go to meetings. It doesn't have to be our meeting. It doesn't have to be AA. It doesn't have to be Smart Recovery. It doesn't have to be any of those. But find one that works for you and be honest
Yeah.
and talk to people. Be vulnerable. It's not easy for people to tell the truth. But when if you're not being honest with yourself, you're going to fail.
Hmm.
And just ask for help. And also, just try it. What have you got to lose? I don't know anybody who has stopped drinking and regretted it. I don't. So just try it, and reach out if you need help. And obviously, if you're a woman and you want to join us, you'd be more than welcome.
Yeah. I'm just laughing there because, my next question was, do you regret getting sober, Beth?
No,
No.
never, never, never.
No.
It's just, even, I was watching I had a migraine this week and I was watching an old episode of The Real Housewives of New York.
Yeah.
Because I really like classy telly, as you can tell. And they were hammered. They were making absolute Egypts of themselves. But then I was watching them having the hangover. Now, I had this horrible migraine headache, and I felt like I was reliving the hangover with them. And I thought, yeah, this is what I will never miss this. I will never miss waking up with that cold sweat. Like, what have I done? What have I said? Get your phone, check it.
Yeah.
Who have I? My thing was Facebook groups. I loved abusing people on there. And it's like, now I don't have to worry about that.
But
And
we're
so
always
I
right.
never,
When we
ever
were
regret it.
drinking and we're having an argument with someone, we're always right. That's it. They don't know
Oh,
what they're talking
always.
about. Yeah. Lastly,
Absolutely.
Beth, have you got a recommendation for a podcast, a book, or a film, all to do with recovery or alcoholism or addiction, or one or all three?
Well, obviously this
Ah,
podcast,
well, thank you,
but
Beth. Yeah.
this book, it's Drinking a Love Story by Caroline Knapp.
Right.
And
Okay.
I actually first bought this when I was 23. And there's a section in it where you do a poll on addiction. And if you're addicted, I'll bring it up.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's from when I was 23, filling that out. And I
And
have
it looks like you've
reread this
circled
book.
all of them. Is that
Yeah, 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 yeah. And
so? Those are
and I would
ticks,
go back
basically.
to it
Yeah.
every few years, and and have another look at, oh, is that still, oh yeah, now it's worse. But yeah, and so this book, it was the first. I mean, obviously, I was when I was 23,
Is that
so
the
there
same
wasn't
copy?
quick lit.
That's the same copy. Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry.
That's the same copy
Yeah,
you've
yeah,
had
yeah. You
since
can
then.
tell. Look, it's
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
minging. But but yeah, and you just didn't get quit lit or anything then. So I don't know how. And I used to read this, and I would be kind of, she would be talking about. I always remember the thing that stood out is, when you've had a big night out and you're trying to gauge with people the next day if they're in a mood with you
Yeah.
or not.
Yeah.
And I remember she wrote that, and I just thought, wow, this woman understands. And so I've always kept this. And even when I was drinking, it's been precious to me because it was kind of, I knew one day I'd get there.
Yeah.
And so this book is really important to me.
It's so interesting that do you buy that yourself or were you gifted it?
Yeah.
You bought it yourself. So at 23, it was almost like, well, you knew then, didn't you? But it was like,
Yeah.
it's all these other hurdles that you had to overcome, as in, like going out. Like, it's almost like people say, we feel like we're cutting ourselves off by getting sober. Like we're restricting ourselves in our social world and all that. We're not. We're opening the whole world up, because
Yeah.
we're not that single-minded anymore. But you had to get through all those hurdles through your life, which was like kind of peer or social anxiety or all these different hurdles to get to where you are now, which I'm sure is living your best life.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm just a different person. There's no way I would have done a podcast, before. I couldn't even say hello on a Zoom. My husband, because we worked together, and he would say, is everybody going to introduce themselves? I'd be kicking him, going, you do it for me, you do it for me, because I couldn't do it. And now, now I can do this. And it's just because I think when you're drinking and when you're a secret drinker, you've always got that level of being on the back foot, because I
Yeah.
used to feel like people knew. And now I'll talk to anyone about it. I don't care, if it might help someone. I've had so many people from my life that have approached me in secret, because they're struggling, but, they don't want people to know. And I was the same. I would have
Because
loved to have had someone I know.
yeah, they see our success, and maybe success is the wrong word, but they see our kind of hope and our presence of this is how life should be. So they're like, oh, I want some of that. So yeah, I've had people messaging me, friends, and saying, what did you do? And they definitely weren't as bad as me, but they're like, what is it? And they definitely have cut their drinking back. I'm not saying they're completely abstinent now, but they've definitely cut it back and realizing that. And then I think they'll get to the point where they're like, well, why am I now having a couple of glasses of wine? I rarely
Yeah.
drink now, so what is the point in that? What's it actually bringing for me? So yeah. Well, is there anything else you want to say to the listeners, Beth, before we go?
No, I think I've yammered enough.
Good. Well, no, it's been an absolute
Thank you
pleasure.
so much for having me on.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure getting to know you and hearing your story. And I know it's going to help loads of people. So yeah, thank you for sharing. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Cheers, Beth.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Beth. Absolute pleasure talking to you and getting to know you. And yeah, just a really good conversation. As I said, before, that she went to AA when she was younger, wasn't ready. Anxiety or whatnot, or not listening for the similarities, but she wasn't ready to give up booze at that point, because booze is this whole, what else do you do if you're not kind of keeping up with your peers and going out and having a drink? And it takes a strong person to go against the grain, go against the norm, and make a life for yourself that doesn't involve alcohol. After the birth of her second child, which she kind of not only to kind of calm herself down, but saw that as a way of, right, this is going to calm my drinking down, had the complete opposite effect. Drinking after her husband went to bed, just really ramping up. And then that COVID, yeah, how many times has the COVID come along and cause issues for people? It's a horrible, horrible time. And but luckily, Beth had that kind of wakening up and just went, right, I've had enough of this, and got involved in that women's group that she's still kind of a main player in now, and helping like over 300 women like globally now, which is just fantastic. All the different courses she has as well, but to be now 4 years plus sober is just fantastic. So Beth, yeah, just keep doing what you're doing and helping others. And I just loved having you on the podcast. So thank you, and we'll chat again soon. Guys, this is episode 49, and next week is I made a mistake with I thought Will was going to be this week, but I managed to get Beth on before I went to Morocco, so I am going to have Will on. Today's Wednesday, so tomorrow, and then that's going to be episode 50, and then we're done for the season, guys. We're done till January, and I'm not sure the actual date when I'll come back on in January. I've got a few things, ideas that I might play about with. It might be quite early in January. We do have the episode with Jen and I on New Year's Day. So yeah, guys, it's just been, I'm not going to say all my thanks and goodbyes and all that just yet, but it's been an amazing season 2. I've had some amazing chats with people and just absolutely love it. Podcast has grown from strength to strength. Just absolutely loving it, and I'm just going to keep doing it. So I know you guys are loving it too. It is getting stronger and bigger and growing, so watch the space for more and more and more. So yeah, as always, guys, hit that subscribe button, 5-star review, comment, just all of that jazz, man. Stay safe, stay sober, and stay supportive. Love you all. Peace.